Thank you very much, Chairman. So we have Councillor Roger Upton sends apologies under the category of other reasons. Councillor Eric Kerry is substituting today. We have Councillor Bethanetti sends apologies for, again, other reasons, and Councillor Boyd Elliott is substituting today. We have Councillor Sue Saddington sends apologies for medical reasons, and Councillor Bruce Lawton is substituting today. Councillor Errol Henry sends apologies for other reasons, and unfortunately there isn't a substitute now. And also we have Councillor Michael Payne has sent apologies for other reasons, and Councillor Kate Fall is substituting.
Thank you. Right, so it's virtually a new committee, in other words, so there's still some old stages, some old hands left with the experience. Good. Thank you. You're happy to accept those apologies, I take it. Thank you. Item number 3, declarations of interest by members and officers. Are there any declarations of interest? Nope. Good. Let's move on then to the first substantive item, which is item number 4, the Local Government and Social Care Ombudsman's decisions. I'll move the recommendation, which is on page 9, paragraph 17, to note the findings. I move it.
Chairman, I second as well.
Thank you. So, you'll see that we've got 4 local government ombudsman's reports where fault has been found. So what I propose to do is, as we normally do, and that is to go through those 4 individually and give members and indeed officers the opportunity to comment. And the first one, where we had full investigations where fault was found, is one in children's, and it was a complaint about how the council carried out child protection inquiries and how it communicated with parents. And today we do welcome Mr. Peter McConaughey, who is Marion Clay's replacement, I understand, has joined us from the city, so he's moving up in the world, as you can tell. And he will be able to... is there anything you want to add to the report?
Good morning. I don't believe that I'm covering this particular item.
Right.
Sure.
Who is? You. Sorry, my mistake. Go on then. Is there anything you want to add to the report?
No, there isn't. So I'm Zoe Miller, I was the service manager at the time. Thank you. Zoe Miller, I was the service manager at the time, back in July 2021, although I've moved on post now. But
Right.
no, nothing to add.
Is there any comment from any member on this one? Councillor Butler, please.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Not really. Well, yes, it is a comment. It's a tremendous amount of work, and I note the compensation that was awarded by the ombudsman, which is fair enough. That's down to the ombudsman. But plainly, this is an example where I suspect, and I know we can't get into details of the case, but I suspect there's an awful lot going on in the case, in the background, and when you read the various, or reading between the lines, I think is possibly the expression. So, I mean, the decision by the ombudsman is that, and you can't do anything about it. But really, just an observation as much as anything. It's plainly a complicated case, and perhaps I'm not surprised that errors had occurred. But
Yeah, I think you're quite right. It is a case of communication once again. We've heard that on a number of occasions, and it really is important that those people who are involved in the system are communicated with fully and clearly. And I know that's not always easy, but I think it's a lesson to be learned. I don't think there's anything really that needs really to concern us about in any great detail. Are there any more comments or questions on that particular case? The next one then, if there isn't, is from adults, a complaint about the delay in assessing father's financial contribution for home care when discharged. And again, you've got that report in front of you, which is on page 19 of the yellow pages. Again, is there anything that you wish to add to this report?
Thank you. Just that obviously this provides us a great opportunity for significant learning, and we are implementing a review which is still ongoing of adult care financial services, which should be completed by January for an implementation. There have been significant changes since this time. At that point we offered apologies and some financial remedy to the family. But it's just an assurance that we utilise this as a fundamental opportunity for learning and in how we communicate. And we have undertaken several steps since then already in the way that our teams communicate and undertake financial assessments to make them more robust.
Well, that's reassuring at least, but I have to say it does concern me that discussions were held over by way of a telephone conversation, and no minute appears to have been kept of that, and that minute sent to whoever it should have gone to Mr. X and Mr. Y, so that they had an opportunity to challenge their understanding.
Yes, I absolutely agree with you. We were hugely concerned about this, and there's been a significant amount of training put into this, and the forms have been revised, the practice has been revised, and there have been innumerable lessons learnt from that in the way that we do communicate. And again, only recently we've tried to embed this as a recommendation within all of our team meetings to standardise expectations around practice, including work around how we communicate more effectively with people. So again, we can only apologise for that.
Yes, Councillor Carey.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. And as members, we all have times where we get constituents asking questions for help, all that kind of stuff. My question in this case is: are you therefore saying, Nicola, that it's still work in progress before that organisational learning that's necessary, that the improvements that you're talking about to be fully implemented, and there might be occasions where similar things are happening now, or are you saying that the systems and processes that are in place, it's just that other organisational things you need to get right to be able to deliver it effectively?
Yes, thank you for the question. Unfortunately, people are fallible. So I can't give you a cast iron guarantee that it would never happen again, because, you know, that's just not realistic. The learning that occurred in this particular case is one that has been implemented and it has been briefed on, so those changes have occurred. What I was trying to explain, because it's pertinent to the next answer as well, is that there is future learning that we are trying to embed that is utilising these sorts of cases constantly. Does that answer the question?
Thank you for that question, an important one, Councillor Carey. We as a committee accept that people are fallible, but I think it also throws into question the degree and effectiveness of management oversight, because if a frontline worker is fallible, makes a mistake, or there is an omission, I'm concerned that there doesn't appear necessarily to be the management oversight that says, well, have you sent that out in writing to the Mr. X, Mr. Y, Mrs. X, Mrs. Y, whatever. So what reassurances can you give this committee that we now have effective management oversight in place?
What I would say is that with over 9,000 financial assessments in process, as a general rule of thumb, we are not able to offer the degree of scrutiny of each individual case, but the expectation is very clearly set out. It was at the time. People have been reinforced. So I am confident, and I would like to assure the committee that I would expect it not to happen again. And that message has been very clearly shared with people in our team meetings, our supervisions, are we have something called an EPDR. So there is embedded learning and expectations within each element of that management structure to enable us to embed that learning and oversight. And those expectations are very clearly set. And then in incidents like this, should this occur again, which obviously I would hope it wouldn't, it would be very well explained to people in a very supportive manner exactly what it was that they weren't able to do or understand, to ensure that they could understand the impact of this on people, because we do not find this sort of thing acceptable. And I absolutely agree with you that I don't think that this should have happened, and that's why we are working diligently to ensure, and I would like to recommend that as we move forwards, I would like to confirm that I could not expect this to happen again, but again, people are fallible.
We accept that. Councillor Foley and Councillor Lawton.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that. My question is, you mentioned that you need to kind of review the way that you communicate, and there's going to be a proper review of that. Under the kind of new cabinet system, where will that go? Will it go to the cabinet member? Will it go to the scrutiny committee? Because clearly, councillors, we need to know, don't we, that the reviews is thorough and widespread, and everybody's taking it on board. So you can do your very best for it not to happen again. So where will it go in terms of scrutiny now for members?
Thank you. Sorry, did you hear that?
No.
It goes via our adult committee structure presently, but in the future, we link very closely with the councillor in relation to this matter. I'm more than happy to have discussions about how else we could share this or do briefings on them if people would like a wider view. I'm not sure if you have any views.
I can assure you, before I come to you, Councillor Lawton, I can assure you, Councillor Fole, that we shall want a report back here, because we have had officers from Adult Social Services before us in the past where there have been significant concerns raised about poor communication, and we were given assurances at that point that a lot of lessons had been learned and it would be improved. So probably in 4 to 6 months' time, we shall be looking for a full report back to this committee, but that doesn't preclude overview and scrutiny having a look at it as well, because we are determined to drive this sort of thing out. It is not good enough, and we accept that people are fallible. Mistakes will always be made, but those mistakes are being made and they're not being picked up, and that's been a concern as well. So I hope you're reassured by that. Councillor Lawton, thank you.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Just a point, really, that the Ombudsman is saying that within 2 months of my final decision, the Council agrees to review its procedures, and then you're turning around to us and saying that you are reviewing procedures, but you won't be dealing with it until January, or the findings won't be available till January, and the report came in July. So I'm just really pointing out the contravention of the Ombudsman's recommendations on this particular issue.
Right, just for clarity, I do apologise. This has been implemented. What I was trying to articulate as an overrider is that we are doing an entire review of the entire financial care services,
Right.
Which will be completed in January. In this case, we obviously have done the things that were mentioned, so I apologise for the confusion, and I welcome the councillors' views as well in how we could share the review of the entire service, because communication is absolutely vital and it's very important to us within that review.
We always meet the Ombudsman's rulings within the time frame, continuing, no doubt,
sure
a
you
very
do,
honourable tradition that was started
I'm
by my
sure
predecessor.
I'm sure you do, Chairman.
Any more? Councillor Smith.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I completely agree with your comments around the review around communication, but I do feel that it's more widespread than just with regards to adult social care. I've been on this committee for 2 years now, and almost every single one of these that comes through says it's communication, lack of communication, and it's not just in the adult section; it's throughout every section. So the children, the couple, it's always communication is the big problem. So I appreciate doing a review of the adult section and bringing that back. But I was just wondering if we could do a wider review of communication across the authority, see what we can do to improve that, because that seems to me the biggest problem that we've got at the moment.
Yeah, I think you probably need to direct that through the scrutiny committees rather than this one specifically. I want this committee to focus on the issues that we've had before. And you're right, communication has been shown to be a difficult one. But you've got the chairman of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee here, who is listening intently and delighted that he's gone and paid his car parking fee. Yeah, go on.
Okay, thank you, Chairman. So back to this adults review. This will go to the adult select committee. So it'll go to that chairman there, and they will liaise with the cabinet holder for adults and the service director with regards to a whole review into the communications that comms for the whole of the county council that is on the forward work programme. But obviously the work programme, as I said in full council last week, is a living, breathing, it's organic. So any members that would like things to be brought onto that, we can add in a timely manner. But obviously we can only do one task and finish review at a time. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Are we comfortable with that one? It's gone as far as we can with it. Thank you very much, Nicola, for coming along and dealing with that one. The next one is about a care homes action. It does seem to me that we, on this one, have been somewhat unfairly castigated. We've been held responsible for the failings of a care home, and we were supposed to know what their failings were. And it does seem to me to be a little unfair. I don't know if there's anything you want to add to the report on this one.
No, I would just concur with your views on this. It's slightly unfair as to how the procedures work. I mean, if anyone has any questions, I'm more than happy to answer them, but I have nothing further to add, I think.
No, I would just say, is there no way this unfairness can be fed back through your adult social care teams higher up? I'm thinking East Midlands councils, or you must have meetings of directors of adult social care where that can be fed in, because I don't know how many adult social care homes there are in Nottinghamshire, but we would have to take on a considerable number of extra staff if we were going to be monitoring all the work that goes on in those care homes. And if the government want us to do that, then they need to fund us accordingly. So I think that is something that needs perhaps to be fed back. I don't know whether other members agree on that. Yeah. Yep. Okay. So can we leave that one with you? You've got the sense of the committee.
Thank you.
Right. The next one, which you have come for, Mr. McConaughey, I'm delighted to see you yet again, is Dr. X's complaint. This is a complaint about lack of hydrotherapy provision for a disabled child. The Ombudsman has found against us it appears that there's an absolute right to have hydrotherapy treatment, but that's all very well if you can find a hydrotherapy pool to take a child during the height of a pandemic. And again, it seems to me that this council has been unfairly castigated and not necessarily been not taken into consideration the exceptional circumstances that applied at the time. And what particularly irritates me, it might not others, but it irritates me that we've paid out a total of £3,200. Now that can't possibly compensate for a lack of being in a hydrotherapy pool, but it takes £3,200 out of our services, and I'm not entirely happy about that. But over to you, Mr. McConaughey.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the welcome once again. This case is clearly a complex situation with a young person with profound needs, and I think you've recognised the challenge and the challenging periods that we had all gone through during this failure to provide hydrotherapy. It clearly was, virtually impossible to provide for the service, and it is written within the Education Healthcare Plan, therefore is expected and should be delivered, but it wasn't easily.
Can we have one meeting, please?
it wasn't easily within the gift of the council to ensure that was in place. It was before my time in Nottinghamshire County Council, so I have got a member of the service who can speak more to this should we need more detail. But I'm
Thank you.
with you.
Right, now's your chance to comment. If you...
Okay, Mr. Chairman, that was just a comment made by the person next to me that I was responding to.
No, right, well, perhaps you'd do it through the chair in future.
Will do.
Yeah. Any comments or questions? Councillor Fold.
Just to say, I appreciate the difficulty, and that has been acknowledged. This is perhaps a question for kind of a different committee, but I must confess, I am very concerned that actually the EHC plans aren't working. When I go to kind of more national, kind of regional committees, it's very, very clear that they're not working, and I just wonder if this is actually kind of part of that kind of national kind of issue, or whether it's something that actually we can actually solve here, or whether or not it's something that actually kind of needs to go more widely.
Thank you for the question. I won't go into too much detail here in this committee as it doesn't relate to this case.
Yes, of course.
What I will recognise is that there's been an exponential increase in EHC assessments, both within Nottinghamshire and nationally, and the resource in place to support and manage that process doesn't match the rise in need, and that is a challenge. We do have a recovery plan in Nottinghamshire around our EHCP processes. It's reasonably robust, but it's a long-term piece of work. Thank you.
Anything further on that? Yes.
There is a review of how we do deal with the HCP. I think it was a little bit unfair of Councillor Fogg to say that what she just did, but exactly what Peter's just said. There's a huge increase in the amount of applications for educational healthcare plans. There's a whole cohort that people believe that they're entitled to that weren't necessarily there many years ago. So that increase, as Peter said, the staff aren't there, and so there's a backlog, and the way it's dealt with is not always the right way. It's new applications coming in, not always dealt with first, so some people are waiting longer than others, depending on what that EHCP is. So it is being dealt with, and there will be a review. So it'll come back to us.
Thank you for that clarification. That it's beyond the scope of this committee.
It
of
is.
course, we just pick up when things go wrong.
Yeah.
And I'm sure they won't in future under your leadership. Right, we've gone through all of the reports. I've moved and seconded that the report be noted. Are you all happy with that? Thank you very much. Okay, let us move on. We've got item number 5 is the report of the annual report of the Local Government and Social Care Ombudsman, the letter for 2021. And you've got a recommendation on page 3, which I move.
I second, Chairman.
Thank you. Are there any comments or questions on this annual letter from members or officers? Councillor Fold.
I just wanted to ask on page 42. Just make sure I'm on the right page 42. Yeah. Where it says supporting complaint and service improvement towards the bottom of the page. It's my continuing view that complaint functions have been under-resourced in recent years, and I urge you to consider how your organisation prioritises complaints. I won't read it all out because you can read it, but what it's arguing is for kind of properly resourced teams where elected members are capable of providing valuable insight. Is that specific to Nottinghamshire?
No,
I was going to say
it's a standard one that goes on everybody.
I thought that was probably the case, but I just have to check.
If you attend this committee more regularly, and of course you're more than welcome to, then you'll see that we do get very comprehensive ombudsman's reports and detailed action by both the internal complaints procedure and the response that we make to the ombudsman's comments. And you'll see that, I know it's not a statistically significant difference, but we are slightly better in comparison with other local authorities. So,
that's fine, yeah.
So we're okay. We hope there are going to be no ombudsman's reports coming to us, and we're working hard on that.
I don't know, if you don't get any, then you might suspect that you're not being challenged.
Pleasing.
You can't win. I had to say that, sorry, Mike.
It won't deter people going to the ombudsman, I can assure you. We don't mind them going as long as the ombudsman doesn't find fault. So are you, if there are no further comments, can we put the recommendation to the vote? All in favour? That's unanimous. Thank you very much. The next item, item number 6, financial regulations waiver. We have this report, and you can see all the waiver details are listed in Appendix 1 on the yellow pages. I would just point out to members that a number of these waivers have been declined because they were retrospective applications. In other words, they'd placed the contract before they'd got the approval to carry out the financial waiver. Now, that is totally unacceptable. The Section 151 officer, sorry, you're looking. No, I'm just paying attention. You're paying attention, goodness me, it's like being back in school. The Section 151 officer has made it clear to all senior staff that that is not acceptable, and if it happens in future, it could well lead to disciplinary action. Because if you are not, if you're ignoring the financial regulations, it's leading us open to fraud and also not getting best value. I don't know if there's anything else you want to add to that, Nigel. Right hand one, you press.
Chairman, please, that's absolutely not tough. I have written out to all the corporate directors and service directors to explain their requirements to stick with financial regulations and also in employees' contracts that requires them to stick with financial regulations.
And I'm sure you would, as a committee, would want to support and back the Section 15 officer in that course of action. So, any further discussions on that? Yes, Councillor Fold.
I was just going to what jumped out at you is the adult social care one, doesn't it, really, which kind of looks huge in terms of rejects. I just wonder why that's so big compared to some of the others, whether it's a cultural thing or whether it's circumstantial. Why in general? I mean, I've read the individual reports, but that's a really huge sum of money compared to kind of the total value, isn't it?
Yeah, do you want me to comment?
Of course,
on that?
Yes.
That was in response. So I guess the point to note is that the report reflects the waivers we've received in 2021, 2022 when we were in the phase of responding to COVID. So the first waiver that was received was in response to an urgent crisis within the health and social care system. We needed to put some urgent beds in to support people coming out of hospital. Essentially, the others were retrospective because the extensions had all been carried out or placements had been extended. So that essentially what Councillor Owen has just said about the contract was done before the approval was received, and the cost is because of the cost of the beds, which is what we're paying for, which could be hundreds per week, and we have a significant amount to support the discharge of patients coming out of hospital and before the home care packages were put in.
Does that mean we're a bit kinder towards them, Nigel?
No, it's not about being kind. It's about recognising the situation that was what is necessary for the council to meet its obligations towards our citizens. Yeah.
Somebody else indicated. Councillor Lawton.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. A couple of things. One is obviously COVID is related within the decision-making process of many of these, and there's a lot more than what there normally is, and you can see that why that is the case. And so hopefully it'll just drop back to where it was originally before we were hit by that. But Nigel, the number 4 was the SITFA subscription. Oh, is it statutory that we're members of SITFA, or is it voluntary?
That one, I believe, is voluntary, but we required it for benchmarking data, which is very useful for us in terms of...
I'm sure you do, but I was just asking the question, that was all.
So it was a good question, Councillor.
And you've got a good answer. Yeah. Happy? Thank you.
Chairman?
Any other questions? Right, the report has been moved and seconded, I think. If it hasn't, I'll move the recommendation on page 3.
Second, Chairman.
Thank you. All in favour? That's unanimous. Thank you. The next item is, again, I think, an annual report on the update on use of resources by Councillors. Again, you have the report set out in front of you. 2 recommendations on page 63, which I move.
I second Chairman as Murat Street.
Thank you. And you've got a schedule on the yellow pages, Appendix A, B and C, which lists those councillors who have exceeded their allocations. But that doesn't mean to say they've done anything wrong. It just means to say that they have exceeded the notional figure that we have to have to trigger a report. And I think Councillor Butler, did you want to say something?
Well, yes, if I may,
Since
Mr.
you're top
Chairman,
of the list.
No, well, yes and no. I'm just wondering, actually, do I need to declare some sort of interest on this, as I'm mentioned in the list here, or no? I don't think I do. I just wanted to be clear on that, and I'm very grateful for the comment you made. It doesn't necessarily mean we did anything wrong by appearing on the list.
No, it doesn't.
Thank you.
I just wanted to reassure you in case you're getting concerned.
Well, thank you.
Are there any questions that any member wishes to raise on this? Councillor Lee.
Okay. Chairman, I believe that this report is going to be changed in the future because, as you know, a lot of councillors will go to their team in their office to print things off, so that may not come forward as, say, I may get somebody to print off £100 worth of print, wouldn't come up in my name. Is that something that we're going to look at in the future of changing, or will it carry on as it is?
Well,
I think that was the notion of also including the officer
that's right. Yeah,
within there.
We've got that information there. So if any member or members tried to do that, it would show up in the member support officer and team leaders and PA to the committee chairman in that table. So I don't think, well, they can try that, but we shall be asking questions, won't we, if they do, of the various officers. They'll come in front of us and give us an explanation, and they'll shop you, Councillor Lee, if they need to. Any Councillor Lawton? Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a quick one. This is Keith runs this, and I think it's excellent. So well done, Keith, keeping a tab on this. And I know it's not enormous amounts of money, but it's important that we have an insight into what councillors are spending, what groups are spending, and so that we know where council resources are going. Because, you know, as we well know, little amounts can turn into large amounts.
And these so-called little amounts do resonate with the council taxpayer, the general public, if they feel that it's being abused, no matter how relatively trivial the amount in comparison with the overall county council budget. So it's perfectly transparent. You've had the opportunity to ask questions on it. It's there in the public domain. Report been moved and seconded. All in favour? That's unanimous again. Thank you very much. The next one is agenda item number 8, attendance at key national conferences. As a result of the change in governance arrangements, approval for members, elected members to attend, and officers to attend conferences falls within the remit of this committee. And what we are suggesting, and of course it's entirely open to you as the committee, there are certain conferences that members and officers go on every year. And we're suggesting that since there is that tradition, you give, as a committee, blanket approval with the proviso that if there is any significant change in the costings to those committees, that a separate report would come back to committee. We're not trying to hide anything. It's streamlining the process. So I don't know whether you've got any comments on that, but I will move that recommendation, which is on, or 2 recommendations on page 3.
I'll second that, Chairman.
Where you've got the particular conferences. Any comments or questions? Are you happy with that?
Shall we just correct that? Because it was Richard.
Oh yes, it's been pointed out to me that when this report was written, Adrian Smith was the Deputy Chief Executive, and he is now the chief executive. So if you could cross out deputy and make it accurate, and the minutes will no doubt reflect that. Thank you. All happy? No questions? All those in favour then of the recommendations? Thank you. Right. The next one is item 9. Rushcliffe Community Governance Review, Upper Saxondale, wherever that may be. We've got a recommendation to approve our response at Appendix B, which I'm going to move the recommendation.
I'll second that, John.
Thank you. This is a parish council review, which I think your advisors, I would say, to avoid like the plague, because they cause that much trouble. This is our suggested response. The members, the relevant member or members, have been consulted, county members that is, and you can see what we're proposing to say. I've moved the recommendation. Any comments or questions? Are you happy with that? In which case, can we go to the vote? All those in favour? Thank you. That's unanimous. The last item on the agenda is the work programme. I think we've still got to slot in, and I shall leave this to Democratic Services to do. We've still got to slot in the report that we talked about from Adult Social Care about their communication improvement strategy and how well it's going, how well it's being implemented. We'll, of course, get a flavour with Ombudsman's reports, hopefully not coming through. But I think it's important that we keep a handle on what they're doing and don't ease up. I mean, they haven't got COVID now as a backdrop, so we should expect some significant improvement. So with that proviso, that we'll leave it to officers to slot that in when Adult Social Services feel that it's appropriate. I move the recommendation. Councillor Lawton, you wanted to comment?
Yeah, just to comment, Mr. Chairman, if I may. It's a very comprehensive work programme, if I may say so.
We've got plenty to do, yes. We keep busy. Thank you very much. Well, you needn't have paid your £1. I'm sorry and all that. I'm sorry, but the meeting's now closed. Oh, sorry. Thank you, Councillor Kerry. Can we vote on the work programme? All those in favour? Yes, I thought you meant that. That's unanimous. Thank you.